Welcome to the Monday Town Council meeting. Denise Clements is not here tonight, so I'm going to be running the show for the night. And could you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councillor Auclair.
Present.
Councillor Carrasco. Councillor
Delayed.
Clements.
Absent. Excused.
Councillor DePietro. Councillor McKenzie.
Here.
Councillor Manna.
Present.
Councillor Morales.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Steves.
Present.
6 present.
Thank you. Item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of December 18th.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, corrections? No? All in favor? Show of hands. Thank you. 3A, consider and accept the special Town Council meeting minutes of December 20th.
So second.
Okay. Any questions, corrections? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Subcommittee minutes, subcommittee summaries. We have not had a general government meeting, but we will have one sometime within the next 2 weeks. There's stuff kind of developing that hasn't kind of come down the pipeline yet, it's not ready to get to a meeting yet, but it'll be soon. Department of Public Works. Councilor DePietro is not here at the moment. And does anybody have his minutes? No? Okay. Education and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. No current minutes to present. However, we will be scheduling a meeting that I should have posted by the end of the week, the date to be determined. A couple of upcoming topics include continued discussion about post-landfill activity and preparation, potentially a topic of conversation regarding zero waste, and what's more, I will persist to see what we can do to request the receiver to come talk with either EHS or the full council and the school committee about the fiasco with the budget and finance. Thank you.
Thank you. D, Planning and Development. Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. We did have a meeting on Tuesday, January 2nd at 6:30 p.m. A couple of the agenda items will be discussed later on tonight, so we can talk about those. There also was an agenda item to review and discuss activities for which the town will request funding in its fiscal year 2018 CDBG grant application. And also worthy of note is that January 29th, before the council meeting, will be a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2018 CDBG grant monies. And at this time, I do not have any meetings scheduled. Thank you.
Just a quick question to the town manager here. We have a problem with that because we already had something scheduled for 6 p.m. for the zoning update. Public forum was going to be that night before the next meeting. So we have a problem.
So we're just going to have to reschedule one of them. So maybe we'll talk to Yvonne tomorrow and
Okay.
go through that and figure out how we're going to deal with that issue. We'll have to find a way to reschedule one of them, okay?
I mean, we could take that and put it right into the meeting, which was what our original plan was for public hearings anyway. So
I'm sorry, just because I only heard part of what you said.
Okay.
Councilor Clare, could you repeat?
Absolutely. So during the P&D subcommittee meeting, it was explained that on January 29th, before the next council meeting, that there would be the CDBG public hearing for the proposed 2018 grants and the proposed projects for that.
Okay, so and the problem is now they're having a zoning workshop meeting at the same time as scheduled for that. Is that what the conflict is?
That's what I'm hearing.
well, yeah, that's something we had worked out with the zoning bylaw update committee.
So Rosemary, actually it was Rosemary who set that up with me for the CDBG grants, and she also does that same project, so I'd be confused why she would have had two at the same time. Perhaps
Yeah, I don't know.
town planner can give us a little light on that.
Yes, if I can clarify, the zoning bylaw update, I guess, presentation from the consultants is actually from 4 to 6. And then I believe the CDBG public hearing's at 6. So from 4 to 6 is the zoning bylaw update presentation.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that was going to be right at the beginning, right before our meeting and going right into it, so
Yeah,
that's the
I
impression had.
think with the CDBG presentation, I think that was somehow worked into the scheduling, but
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Little
Did you have
fog
anything?
here. Sorry, I'm a little foggy here.
Right. Did you have anything else, Councilor Clare?
No, and no meetings scheduled
Okay.
at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and 4E is protection of persons and property. Councilor Mena.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I did have meetings on December 21st and January 2nd. I handed out the draft minutes. The agenda items that we spoke on at these meetings, there's two actually on the agenda tonight, and I see that we have Chief Woodson out in the audience who can answer questions if anyone has those, and also the Fire Chief DeFranzo and Deputy Fire Chief Normandin. They're also here to speak on items if anybody has questions on them. And as usual, the meetings are a public document, and whoever wishes to look at them can request them from the clerk's office. Thank you. No meetings scheduled.
Okay,
This time.
thank you, Councilor Mena. Number 5 is chairman's announcements, and I only have a couple. First off, let's see here if I can get my paperwork here in order. All this other stuff is flying around. The town manager passed me this one because he's not feeling well, so he asked me to read this. A notice of public hearing. The town of Southbridge will hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. Monday, January 29th, which is the one she just announced. The Economic Development Planning Office, Town Hall, lower level, 41 Elm Street, here in Southbridge. The purpose of the hearing is to provide information and receive comments on the proposed activities and associated areas that are being included in the town's application for the 2018 Community Development Block Grant Program. A link to the proposed activities is on the main page of the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us. The town seeks comment from the public and all interested parties and encourages those who wish to provide input to attend this public hearing at the date and time designated above. However, comments may also be submitted in writing to the Economic and Development Planning Office in the Southbridge Town Hall, 41 Elm Street, Southbridge, Mass. 01550. Or via email to rcanoyer@southbridgemass.org. All written comments received before 6 p.m. on January 29th will be read at the public hearing. And also, just to add up, to tie back into what we were saying a couple of seconds ago about the zoning update hearing is a public forum. It's not a public hearing per se, but essentially we're going to run it as though it were a public hearing. So, because the whole point of that is to get public input as well. So, if you can come down for one, come down for both. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. Also, for those, since we're in the same vein, the planning board is doing a public hearing on Wednesday, this Wednesday, 6:30, on the new pot zoning. So if you have concerns and issues and questions about that, that's going to be downstairs in the GAR hall at 6:30 this Wednesday. Councilor Koh.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I had a question about that I had given to the town manager. I don't know if you had read the email, but shouldn't that hearing come after the third reading of the bylaw, or?
I'd like to give you a clear answer to that question. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So I guess, I don't know, Ken, could you help us with that answer to that question? Because I'm just not sure. I know we got to go through for the bylaw, we got to go through the hearings and everything else before the bylaw becomes effective. What's the point of the actual hearing?
The public hearing is to see the zoning bylaw and how that establishes the prohibition in all the zoning districts. I understand that, the council will be hearing for the second time the general bylaw prohibiting marijuana in the town. But understanding at the subcommittee meeting when this went through the process for both ordinances or both bylaws, we just maneuvered it in a way where the general bylaw would be in a different time frame as the zoning bylaw.
Is that then appropriate?
Other towns have done it, they've done it both at the same time, but some have done it, in different time frames as well. The general bylaw, assuming, going through the third reading, which would be on the 29th, and the adoption of that on the 29th, if that council chooses, that would establish that prohibition at the general bylaw, but then the zoning, assuming that when we go to subcommittee after the public hearing, will go through its own time, 3 readings for the zoning bylaw. So, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, and so I had 2 more items. Councilor Nash just passed me one that I think is germane to everybody, and that is the clerk's office is announcing that nomination papers for the June elections will become available Tuesday, January 16th. So if you have any interest in running for any of the town offices that are open, drop in there anytime after that point and get your paperwork and signatures. I'm not sure exactly how many they're going to require. I think the last year was 44, something like that. So it's probably going to be around the same. It usually is. So you might want to check that out. And last but not least, I have a nice little fire department story to mention, and that's a neighbor called EMS for some medical assistance a few days ago. And while the firefighters and EMTs were assisting, they noticed that the smoke detector was open and not functioning. So they asked our neighbors about it, and he just said that he hadn't had the chance to get new batteries for it. So in 5 minutes, they had returned their lights flashing, and arrived with a new smoke and CO detector. So then they installed it, and then they wanted to thank them. They were just very. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just that it was one of those things where it was beyond the call of duty. So thank you. And that's all I had. Item number 6, town manager's announcements. I know you're not feeling well, so I don't know if you have anything to say.
First, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for reading that for me because I'm sorry I am not on the top of my game. I'm a little foggy with a pretty bad cold. I did want to make a mention of a couple of things. Citizens, if you're interested in what happened throughout the year 2017, I did develop a newsletter that gives a lot of information, useful information as to the successes of this administration and this town council over the last year. So if you want to learn a little bit about some of those activities in 2017, it's on the town website. It's also on the town's Facebook page, and it's done in a nice, simple way, easy to read format, and it gives a lot of really useful information about a lot of good things that have happened. I'm really proud of the success of this entire team. I think that we have a lot to be proud of over 2017, and I look forward to a successful 2018 as well. One of the issues I just wanted to mention to town council, I think we all recognize the national problem of the opioid addiction. I know Councilor Steves just recently sent me an article about it as well. It's a horrendous problem occurring throughout the United States. Here in Massachusetts, a number of towns are originating a lawsuit. The lawsuit is against the manufacturers and the distributors of opioids, believing that they've not used safe practices in providing this medication out to the communities. And I've had an opportunity to talk to MMA about it, and a mayor of a town who's also involved in leading the effort, and a number of towns have already joined this lawsuit. And I'm getting all the information to consider for us to join that lawsuit as well. Once I have the information all kind of packaged, I'm going to bring it to town council, one of the subcommittees to discuss it. It wouldn't benefit the town of Southbridge probably for 8 years, but there's a serious cost to the community of drug addiction, particularly the opioids, in terms of our fire and police services, our medical services, and all the community services and things that occur as a result of this addiction. And we need to get involved in this lawsuit. I hate to say this because I'm generally a pro-business type of person, but it seems to me that there's been some, I guess there's no other way to say it, it seems to me some of the biggest drug dealers are drug companies. And that's dangerous when you're overprescribing and putting out more medication on the street than really needs to be out there, and you're making billions of dollars profit at the expense of citizens. That really concerns me. It concerns everybody here. So I'll be bringing that to a subcommittee for review. I've already got a lot of the legal documents that the lawyer for the case is involved. It involves about 7 different law firms from all around the country that are doing this. It sort of follows in line with, you remember, the tobacco lawsuit. And the tobacco lawsuit went through state government, and then money rarely gets passed on from state government to local government. So I think the emphasis here is to have local municipalities actually gather together and do this lawsuit, so local municipalities actually receive some benefit of the lawsuit. I think it's important because it's eating up our resources. I can't tell you how many times our police and firemen have been called to provide services, and the cost of things just like Narcan alone, and just the time and effort that goes in the hospitals and the community services, and lost work time and work effort for manufacturers and businesses all across the state. So I think it's critical, and I'm looking forward to providing that information to you shortly for some serious discussion about if we should join that case or not.
Thank you. Oh,
I just have a question through you to the town manager. I'm a little confused. You said that they're suing the drug manufacturers? They don't prescribe the drugs.
Correct.
It's the doctors that prescribe it, and the opioid clinics, and it's not the drug manufacturers. And it's laws that need to be changed. But I'm sure you'll be bringing all that to us at the subcommittee, like you said. But I'm just a little confused on why they would be, you don't have to go into it now. I just want to state my mind,
if you don't mind,
though.
just a brief kind of explanation, because I think it's important. It's a very good question, frankly. One is there's been a lot of promotion from the manufacturers to the doctors that these opioids were non-addictive in the first place. So there's a lot of belief that the manufacturers and distributors promoted these drugs to a lot of physicians on the basis of they were non-addictive, and a lot of the medicine was sent to particularly a lot of different smaller communities in terms of thousands more than actual citizens. So if you read some of the stories, you can understand why it is actually more geared at manufacturers and distributors, but you're correct. We'll have more of a discussion at the subcommittee level. But I think it was a very good question.
Well, perhaps they should go back to the 1940s when they made methadone as a quick fix for pain and said it was non-addictive. And so, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I did have one quick question to you, because you mentioned that you had gone to the Harrington thing today. So what happened? I wanted to get to that, but unfortunately I was on deadline. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to mention it. I was very happy and actually kind of proud to attend a grand opening ribbon cutting of a child and family services center. It's right across from Harrington Hospital in what used to be, I think, an old auto parts store. And they totally rehabilitated the building, and it looks beautiful inside. And of course, Ed Moore, the leader of the hospital, and all their services were there. A lot of their behavioral health people were there. And again, once again, it's really nice because the Harrington Hospital has been a great partnership with the town of Southbridge. And they reinvested in the building that was sitting there, frankly, just deteriorating. So I thought that was a real asset. Again, it's providing a service both for children and families that I think is needed in the community. So I think overall, I was very proud to attend. There was all kinds of our state reps and state senators were there. Again, to me, it's all about partnership, and I think that they are a good partner. I wish they were a tax-paying partner, but on balance, they've done great things for this community. And particularly, when I talk about the partnership, I want to talk about specifically the partnership between our police and fire and a hospital. I mean, as you know, recently what happened to the nurse over there, our fire department essentially manned that facility over at the hospital, and the relationship between the police and fire and that hospital is just unbelievably positive and a great working relationship. And if we need help, they're the first to come and help us. And they've been helping us with the drug abuse task force and stuff. So it's a two-way street and a great partnership, and it really benefits all the citizens in town. And thank you for reminding me about that.
Okay, thank you. Okay. If that's all. Oh, oops, sorry. My phone's talking to me. Okay, we're at number 7, swearing in and presentations. We do not have any on the agenda. Item number 8, citizens forum. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come to the podium and address something that's not on the agenda? I see somebody coming.
Good evening, Mike Murray, Lynn Lane. In my past citizen forum appearances, I've either held officials accountable, I praised them, or made suggestions to the town. Tonight, I'd like to do all three. As officials, you get calls, you get emails, or in-person conversations from your constituents. how you address those contacts, if you bother to address those contacts, if you follow through with scheduling that promised meeting, etc., it all determines whether you earned the constituents' trust. It determines if you're seen as just talking the talk or walking the walk, as they say. If you sit up here and say, no one ever calls me, then I suggest you do some reflecting on exactly why that may be, and perhaps make public outreach your New Year's resolution. That said, there are other officials who do get calls and do respond in kind or in actions which clearly speak much louder than words. People know who those officials are and from their experiences. They know they can be called upon for their citizen concerns to be carefully addressed. This weekend, my wife and I reached out to several of you regarding a public safety issue for school children. The issue being unshoveled sidewalks on West Street with property belonging to both the town and to private citizens. A flurry, pardon the pun, of communication was forthcoming, and not leaving it to chance, 4 counselors took it upon themselves to personally go out and clear snow on a Sunday night after 7:30 for this, ensure the safety of school children. I know they didn't do it for the public praise, and it's remarkably refreshing to see town councilors caring enough to personally shovel sidewalks on both West Street and Charlton Street to ensure our children's safety. Councilors Nash, Eau Claire, Carrasco, and McKenzie, well done, and thank you. Thank you very much. For my suggestion, there are citizens in this town who may be under doctor's orders not to shovel, who are elderly, who may not be able to afford to hire people to shovel, and of course, there are those who just don't care, or who are absentee landlords who have perpetually never cared. For the former group, I'd like to suggest to the town a program be started where people can sign up to reduce or work off their fines owed to the town by shoveling sidewalks. For those in the hospital who are elderly or otherwise couldn't physically do it for themselves. To take care of the perpetually irresponsible property owner paid for by the additional current fining, as this would help in many ways. It would help the DPW out in shoveling out the growing list of sidewalks in front of town-owned, tore-down properties. Sidewalks the town is responsible for, and it would help private owners in need, and it would also help those facing the town's much-loved fines. A program set up much like the library's Food for Fine program, where it worked for the benefit of all, and possibly overseen by those imposing or arbitrating town fines, or the DPW monitoring completion by photo evidence. I thank you for your time and consideration, and again, thank you to the 4 counselors who took action for the safety of our school children. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Item number 9, vote to ratify the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Comstar to provide ambulance billing and collection services for a 3-year period effective January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Can you talk about this a little bit, or?
My fire chief's better equipped to talk about it, but I believe this contract is between us and the company that has been doing it for the last 3 years anyway. It's just a renewal of a contract. This company's done a great job. The chief and the deputy chief were happy with this company, and essentially it's the same terms of the previous contract because it's on a percentage basis. of the amount collected, I believe. So there's nothing really new here. It's sort of keeping the same system we had in place.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? I do have one quick question, actually. I noticed when I was reading through the documents, unfortunately, I wasn't at the subcommittee meeting because I was sick that day, but reading through the documents, I remember the wording was a little odd. And I was just wondering if, A, if that's standard language for this contract, and B, how much money have we gotten from them, and how much we through the ambulance services in the last year, and how much do we actually pay them?
Chief, do you have any of that information with you? I know that's a lot. I'm sure you may not have been expecting to answer that question tonight, but if you have some information you can provide the chairman, it'd be appreciated.
I don't have exact figures yet on how much they've collected for us, but they only collect 3% of every bill that we issue. So if we don't collect, they get zero. So I could get you that number if you wish on how much we collected for the year of 2017. Typically, we try to do it on a fiscal year, but whichever way you would like to get the information, just send me an email and I will get you whatever details you wish to know.
Okay.
And we have had ComStar for the last 3 years. Prior to that, we had a different firm, and then prior to that firm, we had ComStar. So this is a company that's been with the town of Southbridge for many years, and we've been very happy with their performance. So, and a 3% return on a bill is one of the industry pretty good numbers. So we do pretty well.
I was just curious, why did we decide to get away from billing it ourselves in the first place?
The world of ambulance billing is very complex. Every single thing that you do needs to be specifically coded in the insurance world, a specific way. And if you don't code that procedure properly, you won't get paid.
Okay.
The other thing, too, is insurance companies are getting very restrictive on what they will and will not pay for. Right. And if your documentation isn't correct and your narrative isn't specific, it gets bounced back. It has to go through another review process. And then you have to submit for reconsideration. So it's a very long process to get an ambulance bill paid.
Okay. Thank you. And Councilor DePietro.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for the chief, just wondering, are these folks responsible for collecting as well?
Yeah, with this particular group, which we identified 3 years ago, we didn't have a collection agency 3 years ago. So we, on the last contract, said we wanted a collection agency to be part of the program. We implemented that, so that it still continues on with this particular contract that we've got in front of you. So nothing would change. There is the collection agency. However, when it does go to collection agency, the amount of times that we ever really collect anything is pretty negligible. It's not a lot.
But that's part of your 3%, or their 3%?
Yeah, well, no, once it goes to a collection agency, and now the collection agency, and I don't remember the percentage, but the collection agency collects way more than 3% if they even get paid. Like I said, for the most part, we don't collect very many when they go to collection.
Who is our collection agency? It's not these guys, is it?
No, it's a subcontractor for this particular group, and I can get you that information. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. Item number 10, vote to accept the emergency management grant for 2017 in the amount of $4,460.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Chief, just explain it if you would.
Okay. This grant is the same as we got last year, but we had to make an adjustment to the grant cycle. For the EMPG period of 2016, we'd requested cots and some flat screen monitors to assist in our emergency operations center. Because of all of the hurricanes that have occurred in the country, the cots were not going to be delivered and received by the end of December. So I talked to the state and they said, well, you could shift your request and move your 16 request to 17 and come up with something new for 16. So what we had put in was for PCs to actually work with the monitors that we were going to get, and then a couple of tablets for inspections and our first 2 fire trucks. So that's what we asked for, and that's what we had put in for. So it was just a switch on how the monies were going to be used, because if we didn't do that, we would have lost the monies for 16, because I would not have been able to complete the project by the end of December.
Oh, okay. Good. Any further questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 11, vote to ratify the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and Public Safety Consultants to conduct a civil service police sergeant assessment in the amount not to exceed $8,500.
Second.
Thank you. Chief?
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager. Several months ago, in the spring of 2017, one of our police sergeants requested a voluntary reduction in rank, wanted to go back to being a patrol officer, did not want to be a shift supervisor anymore for personal reasons. So in May of 2017, we made an acting/provisional sergeant through civil service to fill that void. This person's been doing this job since May of 2017, but we are a civil service community. So with that said, I requested with the town manager that we call Human Resources Division in Boston, Civil Service, and initiate the process to do an examination. I can't just promote somebody because I want to promote them. It has to go through the testing phase like every other position in our police department. And then the top 3 candidates we can evaluate from there on out. So with all that being said, again, we have one officer in May, has been doing the job for almost a year now. He has signed up to take this test. We anticipate it going, if it's approved with you guys tonight, January 18th, which is a couple weeks from now. I expect several candidates to take this test. This is an eligible test. With whoever takes this test on the 18th, it'll be good for 2 years, the scores. So not to, confuse anyone or get too into this, but I also have another sergeant retiring in July. So what this does is this will enable me to select a few different sergeants from this one examination rather than have to keep coming back to the town and ask for more money to do these assessment centers. The way that this company was chosen is essentially was a low bid. We put it out to bid like we have to do through the town manager's office. 2 companies in the state came back. Both companies very reputable. One was a couple $100 cheaper. We've used both companies in the past. Again, they both provide the same service. There was no reason not to select the lower bid, so that's what we have today.
Okay. Any questions? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. And I'm sorry, I don't think I missed this, Chief. You answered all of our questions during the subcommittee meeting discussion of this particular item. But if you don't have enough candidates, the amount will actually be $6,500. Was that correct from the back material?
It's correct. The exact amount would be for up to 5 candidates, it's $6,500. And if it's 6 to 8 candidates, it's $8,500. I anticipate somewhere under, 5 or so candidates taking the test. So it should be about $6,500. But the reason why we agreed to put it on the agenda at the full 85 is in case, 8 or 9 people come forward and want to take the exam. I'd want to have to come back and request additional funding. So I expect it to be $6,500.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I do have one, Shane. I know that being a civil service community means we could get applicants from virtually all over the state. Have we ever considered the idea of not being a civil service police department?
At this particular point in time, no. I think that's a discussion for another day. In 1988, the town had voted to make us a civil service police department. And now it's collectively bargained. So in order for us to come out of civil service, we'd have to negotiate with the union, which I don't know if they'd agree to that.
I'm just curious because I know some towns do it, some towns don't. I mean, being a reporter, I've seen some towns where they have discussions like this, and and they're raising concerns like that too. So I was just curious.
Well, quite honestly, I mean, I've had some issues just with the hiring and some other things. And civil service, sometimes it's difficult to work with. Sometimes it's easy. Some departments are with civil service. Some stay with it. Some get out. It's each individual department's choice. But in our particular case, it'd be a negotiation. We have to collectively bargain that with the union.
Just curious. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 12, vote to ratify the VHB contract for engineering services associated with the 25% design submittal to Mass DOT in the amount of $201,000.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Heather.
I didn't know if you wanted Mark to go through anything from subcommittee since he's
did
back.
Did you have your hand up? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Well, I can certainly give you a prelude to what Heather's about to tell you.
Oh, okay,
Or
go
I
ahead.
can just basically go through it.
Essentially, it's a rotary, which I'm very fond of, having looked at the plan, which is going to take the mess of Central, Foster, Hook, and Hamilton Streets and turn it into something quite a bit more feasible and passable.
Right.
I guess this goes back, plans for this prior to Heather joining the DPW. Looking for $201,000, which is strictly engineering fees. And we all were certainly, after going through it with Heather, unanimous on recommending this to council for ratification.
Thank you, Councilor. Heather,
Give you
did you add?
a little update. So this is a project that, like Mark alluded to, had started way before I was in the town, and it's basically been going on for over 10 years. When there was a study regarding the downtown circulation, this was the area that was identified that needed to be addressed. So we're talking at the intersection of Hook and Hamilton, La Rochelle Way, over to Central Street. We'd actually be expanding La Rochelle Way, installing a light on Central Street at La Rochelle Way, putting a rotary at Hook and Hamilton, which Hook Street will end up being a dead-end street and more parking area. This was evaluated for traffic. Multiple options were looked at for traffic. It's gone through multiple public forums and discussions with options. The businesses in the area have all been part of the discussions, and people that are impacted have been part of the discussions, and this design is the one that it was determined to be the preferable design to address most of the issues in the area, including safety. There was a road safety audit that was done just about a year ago as part of this project. In addition, so now we have moved this project and we have placed an application to be placed on the TIP. The TIP is a funding mechanism for us to get federal funds to do this project. This is a major project. We're talking $6-7 million is the estimate at this point. So in order to be placed, you do your application to be placed on the TIP. Our application has been accepted, and to be moved forward to get an actual place and an assignment of when we'll be getting the money, we have to complete the 25% design. So this is the proposal to complete the 25% design. VHB has been our consultant throughout the whole process. They are the most knowledgeable, far more knowledgeable even than me on this. They know the ins and outs of this project, and so this is for them to go forward and prepare our 25% design so that we can be placed on that actual TIP list and get our place in line to get the money to be able to do this work. This was also funded in the capital plan this year, so this money has already been set aside for this work.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Just to clarify for the viewers, TIP means Transportation Improvement Plan. It's a federal program. Councilor Nass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just a comment. Heather, thank you. And just to give the public a little more reassurance, we beat this up pretty well in subcommittee.
Yeah.
And I think it went through unanimously, as the subcommittee chair had said. And this is a project that's been in the works for a long time. It's going to take several more years, but it's something that many of us are looking forward to, so thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, anybody who drives through that neighborhood knows that it's dangerous, and this will hopefully this will make a huge difference, and hopefully we see it before we all turn gray. So, oh yeah, absolutely. So anyway, any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 13, vote to ratify Stantec's professional services agreement change order in the amount of $52,400 for the additional scope of work to prepare Phase 2 of the local limit update required by the NIPD's permit, bringing the total contract amount to $68,900.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mr.
So, go ahead.
Chair?
Okay. Councilor DePietro.
I believe we needed to adjust that agenda item.
No, it's
We
correct
did.
now.
We did adjust it.
Oh, with the,
Yeah, I read it as in the amount of $52,400 for a total contract amount of $68,900.
well done. Thank you.
No problem. Heather.
This is a change order to an existing contract, as this was referred to. We did the Phase 1 of this assessment as part of our NIPD's permit back a year and a half ago. We received the comments from the EPA and the state saying what we needed to do to go on for Phase 2. So this is moving to the next stage of this testing. This is for our industrial discharge permit. So what I should step back and let everybody know is the town has a program through its sewer department to issue industrial discharge permits to the industries in town. They're held to a higher standard to make sure that there is nothing in their wastewater that could affect the water, could affect our plant or our discharge permit. So they're held to make sure that they treat independently of us before we receive their waters to meet the discharge standards so that we know that we are meeting our permit on the far end. So every 10 years or so, you have to reevaluate that permit process. You have to reevaluate it sooner if you have issues, but we haven't had any issues in the past. So we're in our 10-year cycle. Part of our NIPTES permit is we've been asked to reevaluate this. This is the process to reevaluate it. It involves some additional testing, some looking at what we're receiving for wastewater, some doing some mass balances, and adjusting our permit limits for our industrial permits to new limits potentially. So that is the process. Stantec has been working on this. I'm very comfortable with them going forward on this. I hope you'll support this project. It's important for us to keep this up to date so we can assure that we're discharging and not anything harmful.
Any further questions? Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heather did touch on it, but if any councils are scratching their head on this, it is a compliance issue, and it's a necessary evil.
Okay. I did have one quick question, Heather. Do we have a rough time frame for? You mentioned at the subcommittee meeting that once we go through this process and make these changes, you'll end up basically telling the people who hold the industrial permits that their permits may or may not change. Do we have a rough time frame for when that's likely to happen so that they'll know?
It will probably be within about a 6-month time frame from that. Part of this proposal is to meet with the industrial discharge permit holders and go over the permit changes with them and explain what we need and how it could be affected. So that's part of this proposal for the actual consultants to meet with our industrial discharge permit holders.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 14, vote to ratify the agreement between the Town of Southbridge and the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission to prepare the town's FY 2018 CDBG grant application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is something we've done the last couple of years. CMRPC puts together our grant for the CDGB funds. It's all paid for by either administrative grants within the grant itself or through a technical assistance grant, so there's no cost to the town directly. It's all done within that grant progress. CMRCP is great to do this. It's a ton of work and it takes the burden off of the community.
Okay. Councilor Leclerc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, just because it doesn't say it on here, but I believe that's a $3,000 allocation from the administrative funds from that CDBG grant money.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Just clarify that so this isn't actually costing any extra money. It's already there. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. It's unanimous. I probably should have said that earlier, that every vote has so far been unanimous, but, okay. Let's see. Okay, we did, okay, so, yeah, I see that. You had struck out 15 because we have not yet, the agenda here specifically states an item number 15 that we're going to hold because the CDBG program has not held its public hearing yet, which we talked about earlier. So, and we can't do anything with that until that happens, so. Item number 16, vote to appropriate from CDBG program income funds in the amount of $20,695 to pay for town-branded signage and in the amount of $35,006 to help pay for town hall rear handicapped entrance.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Can we, Rosemary, please? Thank you.
So I'll explain this for you a little bit. There's we have some money that we call, that's classified as program income money. So what that means is when the town gets involved with activities under the CDBG grant, like commercial rehab projects, which is facade, sign and awnings, or housing rehab, which is heating systems and roofs and different things within housing units. They are forgivable loans. And, the facades are forgivable loans, and the housing rehab are forgivable loans. So we set up a contract whenever we are doing one of these projects, and the applicant signs it and says, for instance, with our facade program, if they leave that space or the town, they move their business before the end of 10 years, then they will owe a certain amount of that forgivable loan back to us. If they stay there for 10 years, then they won't owe anything. It becomes a grant. So, of course, this does happen from time to time. The same thing happens with housing and rehab. There's a similar setup that says if they leave that house within a certain period of time, they owe a certain proportion of that grant money back. So that becomes income to our CDBG program. We call it program income. Now, that money, we can use it for in association with other CDBG activities. Sometimes a budget will go a little higher than we expected. There's different ways that we use that. We always have to get approval from DHCD. But after a while, that money ages out. So what I mean by that is if we get money, some of that income, from a grant that's perhaps, I think it's older than 5 years or something like that, the town can actually use that money at its discretion. So it doesn't have to be used in conjunction with particular CDBG projects in those particular target areas. And this has not been, there hasn't been clear guidance on this in the past. So DHCD has clarified that this year, in part because HUD may change the rules and say that that all program income may have to be used before the next grant is used. So it would reduce our next grant by the amount of program income that we have. So DHCD is waiting to hear from HUD on that decision. But in the meantime, they put out a notification to all of the mini entitlement communities, which we are one, and said, if you have any money in program income right now that meets this criteria of it's aged out, and you want to use it at your town's discretion, do so now, or forever hold your peace, because you might lose it. So what we're proposing to do, so what we're bringing before you is, number one, notifying you of this, and number two, saying that we would propose using you probably have the memo in front of you, approximately $20,000 for the branding signage, $20,695 for the branding signage. Now, if you recall, we had a consultant that worked with us, an artist and an urban planner, who was we paid for it. It was part of the economic development plan, and he helped take us through a whole process. There was an advisory committee, there were public meetings, and he took us, he's an expert in his field, and he took us through this process and came up with this graphic and these colors and these symbols for branding. And we came before town council, he explained it. That was in early 2017, and then we went before the Planning and Development Subcommittee to discuss the colors in more detail. There was a lot of thought and time put into the selection of these colors and the graphics. Oh, excuse me. So, and I just want to reiterate because I really before this process. I really wasn't sure what was meant by this, but so just to reiterate, basically community branding is the process of identifying and reinforcing the unique character of community. It reinforces identity. It visually defines character. It underscores the community's uniqueness. It links collective memory, connects, these are kind of urban planner terminology, connects communal familiarity. It leads to the creation of a sense of arrival, a sense of place, a sense of shared visual memory and community ethos. So we were very excited by that. Unfortunately, it didn't make it through with the free cash budget last year. That was voted down. However, we thought this might be a good opportunity to be able to fund this.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I see on this agenda item, and I do remember this, but I would have to go back through my minutes to see exactly the minutes that were, I remember those meetings, and yeah, it didn't make it through. But I look at this and I say that I see the income that you have from the CDGB money is $20,695. But the amount is $35,006, so there's a $14,311 difference. Am I reading something incorrectly?
Yeah, let me clarify that for you, okay? So there is approximately $55,701 that can be pulled out of CDBG and used at the community's discretion. So we are proposing a couple of different ways to apply that money. One is for the signage, for that $20,695, and the other is for DPW use to replace the town hall's rear handicapped entrance ramp.
Okay, so thank you. So my question, I guess, I feel that this should be 2 agenda items, not all rolled into one, because it's very confusing. And now I have a question on the handicap entrance, because didn't we vote to appropriate money to have that fixed last year?
I believe
And
we did.
what happened to that?
So that's exactly why Heather's standing at the microphone right now, and I'll let her explain it, but the basic start of it is that when we went to do the handicap ramp, we found out that the problems were much worse than we expected as they started to open up. So we never finished that repair because we'd have to redesign and do some work. I'm going to have Heather kind of detail that out for you. Heather, if you would.
Sure. So initially, when we put in for this item, we thought we were just taking out the surface of the handicap ramp and resurfacing it. So taking out the top 4 inches of concrete and replacing that. When they took out a section of it, they determined that the pan, which is the metal underneath, was so deteriorated that it couldn't be poured back on top of it. So we knew we were going to have to do something different. We were going to have to do a more extensive project. In the meantime, we were doing our green energy project at the same time and identified that the boilers that we have in the downstairs, the plenum went right through those stairs, so we had this void space, so we were going to relocate that. Then we just identified that the boilers themselves were being oil-fired, really would be more efficient to be gas-fired boilers, and we're doing a gas upgrade project, which means that the oil tank, which is also located underneath the ramp, would have to be also removed. So the ramp project got put on hold until the other projects could be completed so that we could do one big upgrade of the ramps. The concern now is that the 65, which is for the ramp and the fronts and the stairs, it's not just the ramp, isn't enough money to do all of the whole project. I guess what I would say is if we set aside it for the ramp project, if we don't need the whole amount of money, then we'll be able to come back and turn that money back over to say we could do something else with it.
Okay. Well,
But this way we would have $100 grand to address the ramp, the removal of the tank, anything associated with that area, and have it addressed for one final time. Plus also maybe be able to address those front stairs where the railing is rickety and all of those things.
okay. So, thank you.
Yep.
Heather, Ms. Blakely. I would feel more comfortable if these were two separate items, because they're for two separate things altogether. I don't even know why they're clumped together. I know it's coming out of the same money, but they're two separate items.
I
And
actually raised that question to the town manager when we got in. If you would like to make a motion to divide the question, we can do that.
I would like to make a
would
motion
second.
to separate this and have the CDGB program income funds in the amount of $20,695 to pay for town-branded signage, be its own item, and add maybe agenda item 16A, vote to appropriate from CDG program income funds in the amount of $35,006 to help pay for the town hall rear handicap entrance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I think we should do a roll call.
Okay, I was thinking that too. So all those in favor of separating the two items, I have no problem doing a roll call. So can we do a roll call on that one, Max?
Sure. So Councilor DePietro,
Yes.
Councilor McKenzie,
Yes.
Councilor Mann,
Yes.
Councilor Morales,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
No.
Councilor Steves,
Yes.
Councilor O'Clair,
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco. Seven
Okay.
yes, one no.
So then we are on item number 16, which is now to vote to appropriate from CDBG program income funds in the amount of $20,695 to pay for town-branded signage. Do we have any further questions or comments on that particular item? Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Scrivens. So would this wouldn't bind us into a contract, correct? This is just buying some
Right.
signage.
Exactly, so
With
it's...
the CDGB money, it's not coming out of the taxpayers' money,
Right,
correct?
exactly. It's
Okay.
income that we actually earned as a result of administering these loans. It's like we're a mini bank using CDBG money.
Okay, and we're not bounded into any type of contract with a signage company, correct?
No, we will come back to you with that. So right now, we just want to ask if it's okay to allocate that money towards, and I have gotten an estimate from a local sign company to have a budget item. I'm sorry, to have a budget amount. But I am checking with two other entities, because of course I want to get the best price possible. But in the meantime, we wanted to get it authorized by you.
Okay, but not at the expense of the taxpayer.
What's that?
Not at the expense of the taxpayers.
Right, right. And so then we will come back to you, if this is approved tonight, we'll come back to you for authorization to do a contract.
Okay. Councilor Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just from the memo, just so that we all know what we're talking about here. It's not the all-encompassing project that was presented to council. And this is, as Councilor Manna pointed out, CDBG grant monies that, for somebody who was originally against the entire economic plan with the whole signage, this is going to be four 4x6 vertical welcome to Southbridge signs, 3 30-inch by 36-inch wayfinding directional signs, 3 36-inch by 9-foot tall monument directory signs, and 4 arrow post wayfinding signs. And that's where the $20,695 comes from per your memo. Just so we all are aware
Yes.
that it's not the whole presentation.
The family of signs, is that what you mean?
Right.
Okay, right. So the family, that was just a suggestion, and that was in your packet, as a way to so that you could visualize how this branding can be applied and implemented, and that these are the most common types of signs, or there was a banner there. There's also benches, it's just kind of a way to get us thinking of how to implement this branding. And so this would be kind of the first step to kind of get this, the branding, make this presence be known. And then we can all decide where we want to take it from there.
Okay, I do have a quick question. I saw the two of you.
I
I was
still
also
have
curious,
questions.
I'm sorry, were you done?
I wasn't. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, were you complete, Councilor Clare?
I'm sorry. I wasn't quite finished.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to reiterate that originally I was against this proposal, but I think that coming out of CDBG grant monies, it should be put back into a CDBG type project. And I think that with the amount of time that's been invested by business leaders and folks in the community that I have changed my mind, and I would be for this tonight as it is before us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, what I was going to ask is, do we have a specific location for where these things are going to go yet?
Yeah, the CDBG coordinator, Rose Canoyer, and I kind of toured the town for an hour and went to different locations. And so we haven't made really super specific decisions yet, and, we want to work with others, DPW director, and perhaps maybe someone from town council would want to provide their ideas, town manager. But we certainly want to have, why we said 4 welcome to Southbridge signs, obviously they would be at each of our gateways. And then the wayfinding, those wayfinding signs and the monument directory signs would be sprinkled around downtown, I think. There might be something in the outskirts a little bit, like to direct people to the Westville Dam, wherever we have landmark places or destinations. Is where we'll look for the most logical place to put these.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Amanda.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Kraska.
Yes, thank you. And so I have a question in regards to the actual signs, because I know that there was a company that did this project. So do we actually own the design of the signs, or we would still have to go to this old previous company, or they did all the work for us?
No, so he was a consultant. He doesn't make the signs. He just helps with the rendering. And
So I know it's the design work. So we wouldn't.
we wouldn't have to use him for this.
Okay, so we're all set. Now the second question would be the whole eyeglasses thought process. Is that still part of the idea when it comes
Yes.
to? Okay,
Definitely. So take a look if you see, yes.
I see. I just didn't know because it just says signs. I didn't know if we were
right.
adding the post and all that jazz
So
to
I'm
this.
providing those drawings. I have provided those drawings to 3 different sign-making companies because I'm saying this is exactly what we want. And they're then giving me kind of the more technical specifications for durability and that sort of thing. And the materials that will be used for each aspect of the sign.
Okay. And I too, like Councilor Auclair, would say that the use of CDBG funds is fitting because we've used those kind of funds to do awnings, do flower pots. I mean, we've done so many different things. So I think this would be a more feasible place where they can get the money from. So thank you.
Okay. Councilor DePietro.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, has any thought been put into having the town's email on the bottom of some of these for folks just coming to town for the first time?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that?
Has any thought been put into adding the town's email on the bottom of the signage?
You mean like the website?
The website.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, we haven't gotten to that level of detail, but that's certainly something to consider. I also wanted to mention that if you guys approve all this tonight, 2 signs with all of the same graphics will also be purchased for the new Central Street parking lot upgrades, which will be paid for under that grant. There's already money as part of that design for signs. And we've seen some examples of municipal parking lot downtown signs where they have a small walking map, a graphic of a small walking map with a kiosk, and maybe you can grab a paper version of that. And so we want to use these signs to connect people to the town more. So that would be a good idea.
Any further? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Rosemary, just so that we're really clear, could you please, 1, advise on your next steps should this go through tonight? And 2, what is the expected color scheme? Is it per the materials that were presented at committee?
The next step would be to choose which of the sign companies that we were going to get into a contract with and then present it to the town council for approval. I have one sign company that is helping me look at all three so that I'm looking at apples to apples, making sure I understand what the materials are that are going to be used. One of the things is, we want these signs to last, so we want them to be durable in terms of, if there's graffiti on them, you can wipe it off. If there's rain or inclement weather, whatever it is, and we just want to make sure these signs will be of high quality. So then the second step would be, I'm sorry, to answer your second question is, the color and the graphics that you see in the paperwork, that's what the plan is, to have them designed exactly like that.
Just to follow up with a comment.
Good.
Thank you for that clarification. I very much appreciate it.
Sure.
Just to remind everyone up here that there was much discussion about those graphics and the colors back in March or April, whenever it was, when the previous council shot it down with 7 votes against and none for. And I still support moving forward, getting out of the way, and making some progress so we can go on to the next thing. So I appreciate hearing from Councilor Eau Claire and Councilor Carrasco tonight that they would support this. I hope that's the way they vote. Thank you.
Councilor.
Through you, Chairman, I would like to ask, I know we had some questions about the wording of the town of opportunity. Will you come back to us to figure that out? Because I know we weren't a big fan of the wording.
That doesn't have to be used. I think that's the
Okay.
least important part of the whole branding process. And I've heard enough people say they don't care for it. It's not a super important thing, I don't believe. So that absolutely does not have to be part of it.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? No? I only have one thing I wanted to add. I was thinking if you're going to do one of the entryway things, logically we should put one up at the airport as well.
Yeah, that would be, we have talked about that. I think that would be great.
Any further comments or questions? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just through you two, it would be my request for a roll call on this as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have no problem with that. Okay, so, in that case, then, Max, roll call, please.
Councilor McKenzie?
Just to clarify before we go on, that we are specifically voting on to appropriate CDBG program income funds in the amount of $20,695 to pay for town-branded signage, and that's it at this point.
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Eau Claire?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you, Max. Okay, and agenda item 16A, to vote to appropriate CDBG program income funds in the amount of $35,006 to help pay for town hall rear handicap entrance.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments?
Can we do a roll call vote on this?
No problem.
also?
Yes.
I
Roll
did-
call, please, Max. You have a question? Go ahead.
Sorry, I did have one quick question as well. I know that during the subcommittee meeting, not only did we speak about the ramp and, whether or not this would be enough to actually complete it, but also the, I believe it's a fire door inside, and perhaps incorporating a handicap sort of button into that to allow access for those in wheelchairs inside.
If I could,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Heather, when we were discussing this, there were a couple of issues that were raised about this. One is the opening of the door for handicap accessible people, if we could somehow make that electronic to get that door open, so that when a person come up that ramp,
The inside door. So
The-
you go inside the glass.
Next door.
The next
yeah, the
door.
inside,
Okay,
door,
I didn't
right,
realize that.
because they get through the first door and they can't get in through that second
Okay.
door. It's hard. And then secondly, I don't think she mentioned it, but there was also some discussion, and I think the discussion happened in the past as well, about some kind of overhang that would protect people from rain over the handicap ramp. I don't know if that was discussed in the past. It seems to have been some kind of coverage over the ramp. I don't know if it's possible, but I know it was discussed in the past.
Considering the design of the whole ramp hasn't been done, now we have 100,000 for the ramp and the other stairs. The other stairs still need to be addressed too, so I mean, it's always possible we could come back and say we didn't have enough money, but, we are dealing with the issue of the tank. We are dealing with the issue of the void. We are dealing with some of the other issues that are under there. I feel better now having 100,000. I will try to incorporate as many of the items as we can, including the button. I don't think the button and the door opener is a really big deal. That's kind of like a $3,000 item. It's not as expensive, so it probably can be added relatively easily. The covering, a covering like that could be 100,000 in itself. So.
Could be extended.
Wow.
Because now you're talking architectural, you're talking structural stuff, you're talking wind loads, you're talking, we're talking getting architects involved if we're doing this covering, not, yeah.
Councilor DePietro.
Just to further on that, I mean, if you're going to put a roof on it, you might as well put sides on it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, you're looking for another 20,000 and change,
Minimum.
just to expand on Heather's comment.
Did you have your hand up, Councilor Carrasco? No, okay. Heather, I had a quick question also. So just to clarify, so does that $100,000 cover also the tank removal underneath, or is that just the repairs?
Hoping that 100,000 should cover the tank removal too, as long as we don't hit any contamination.
Okay, and that 100,000 does not include the 35,000 we're voting on now? That's
No,
100,000
it's
already in hold.
65 now. We have
Okay.
65 now. With the 35 would be up to 100.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Okay, can I do roll call, please, Max?
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor Eau Claire?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes?
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you, Max. Agenda item number 17, vote to adopt the zoning map amendment changing the zoning designation approximately 0.98 acres, more or less, herein identified on Southbridge Assessor's Map 48, Lot 135, from its present zoning designation of two-family residential to general business, as recommended by the Southbridge Planning Board at its public hearing held on November 15th, 2017.
Excuse me.
This is third and final reading. Yes.
That's lot 134. You said lot 135.
Or did I? I'm sorry. Lot 134. Thank you. This is our third and final reading. Okay. Any further comments or questions or amendments or anything? This is the time to make them. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to you, or to the town manager, maybe just a quick summary of what this is.
No, actually, thank you for reminding me. I was planning on reading the letter that Ken had sent around. So here's a copy. This was the letter that our town planner Ken Comey sent around back in November. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Southbridge Planning Board held a public hearing scheduled at 7:30 p.m. and opened 7:43 p.m. on Wednesday, November 15th in GAR Hall in the Town Hall. Notice of public hearing is advertised in compliance with state statutes. The purpose of the hearing was to receive public comment and consider amendments to zoning map as follows. Change the zoning designation on approximately 0.98 acres, more or less, herein defined in Southbridge Assessor's Map 48, Lot 134, from its present zoning designation of two-family residential to general business. The public hearing was closed on November 15th. After planning board members carefully considered the proposed zoning map change as requested by the property owner, Dr. T.K. Thomas, a majority of the members in a vote of 4-2 approved the recommended approval of the zoning change to expand the general business zoning districts. And specifically what we're talking about here is a property at the corner of South Street and Main Street. It's commonly known as the Beaches. At the moment, it's set up as a two-family, and there's been some proposals that have come by to look at it for businesses, and they basically didn't want to buy it because it's a two-family property. It's that one parcel. It's got general business on the going toward downtown, going toward the Elm Street side is already general business. There's already general business on the other side going up South Street. And the two-family is pretty much running, there's general business going up Main Street, and the two-family pretty much runs down South Street. So the idea was to take that and throw that into the existing general business district. Thank you for reminding me. Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and since that was the third and final reading, agenda item number 18 is vote to ratify the zoning map amendment identified on Southbridge Assessor's Map 48, Lot 1, this one says Lot 124, but it should be 134. from its present zoning designation of two-family residential to general business as written above and first read on December 14th, 2017, second on December 18th, 2017, and this third and final reading tonight on January 8th, 2018.
So moved.
Councilor Carrasco.
Just have a question. Agenda item number 17 said vote to adopt. So do
You're
we
right, it
need to
did.
vote for 17 and then ratify 18?
I don't think it should.
Or should have just said read?
Yeah, I probably should have just said read. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even catch that, and I read it too.
Should we read it again, just to be clear?
Well, we're voting on agenda item number 18. I just didn't want the public
Thank you for
to
catching
understand that.
That's a good point. I read it and didn't even notice it. I think it's fairly clear personally, and that we're voting on it. I mean, I don't see a big issue, do you?
No, that's why I just wanted to make sure that
He's got a point. It was phrased vote to adopt.
It was not a point of contention, it was just a point of clarification.
You're right, thank you.
Agenda number 17 was just a reading.
Yes, it was.
And 18 is the vote.
Thank you. That was the intent, yes. Thank you. So, did we have a motion and a second?
May I ask a question?
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are the dates correct of the readings? Because I thought we had council meeting on December 4th, not the 14th, and again on the 18th.
Okay, thank you for catching that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
So move.
Okay. Do we want to do this by roll call, since it's technically a bylaw?
Ready?
Yes.
Councilor Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Councilor O'Clair?
Yes.
Councilor Carrasco?
Yes.
Councilor DePietro?
Yes?
Councilor McKenzie?
Yes.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 19, it says vote to amend, but we're not voting yet. This is actually just the second reading for the marijuana bylaw. The Southbridge Code of Bylaws introducing new Article 7-509 marijuana, Chapter 7-509, Statement of Intent, Definitions, and Statement of Bylaw as follows. Section 7-509 marijuana. 509.1 Statement of Intent. On November 18, 2016, the voters of the Commonwealth approved a law regulating the cultivation, processing, distribution, possession, and use of marijuana for recreational purposes, New Mass General Law, Chapter 94G. And there's text in here that actually shouldn't be in there because we voted to take it out.
Date was November 8th, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Under Mass General Law 94G, Section 3A2I, allows a city or town to limit the number of marijuana establishments in the city or town, except that a city or town may only adopt an ordinance or bylaw by vote of the voters of that city or town if the ordinance or bylaw prohibits the operation of one or more types of marijuana establishments within the city or town. Whereas in our community, on June 13, 2017, the citizens of Southbridge voted 1159 to 989 in the affirmative to question 2, stating the town shall prohibit the operation of marijuana retailers as that term is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, within the town of Southbridge. On June 13, 2017, the citizens of Southbridge voted 1150 to 990 in the affirmative to question 3, stating that the town shall prohibit the operation of marijuana cultivators as that term is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, within the town of Southbridge. C, on June 13, 2017, the citizens of Southbridge voted 1109 to 1029 in the affirmative on question 4, stating that the town shall prohibit the operation of marijuana testing facilities as that term is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, within the town of Southbridge. And D, on June 13th, 2014, the citizens of Southbridge voted 1153 to 979 in the affirmative on question 5, stating that the town shall prohibit the operation of marijuana product manufacturers as that term is defined in Mass General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 1, within the town of Southbridge. 7-509.2, definition. For the purpose of this section, a marijuana establishment shall mean a marijuana cultivator, independent testing facility, independent testing laboratory, marijuana product manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business for the retail recreational market. 7-509.3, Statement of Bylaw, Prohibition of Marijuana Establishments. In accordance with the Mass General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 3A2I, all types of marijuana establishments as defined in Mass General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 1, and as may otherwise be defined in Massachusetts law or regulation to include, without limitation, all marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana retailers, or any other type of license, that says licenses, it should be licensed, marijuana-related businesses shall be prohibited within the town of Southbridge. This prohibition shall not be construed to affect the medical use of marijuana as expressly authorized by the provisions of Chapter 369 of the Acts of 2012 and 105 CMR 725.000, as the same may be amended from time to time, or the ability of households to grow for personal use as defined under Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 2. This is the second reading. Any questions, amendments, comments? This is the chance to amend. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to note, it was not striked out on our agenda.
I saw that, yeah.
In parentheses, but it is in our packet,
Yes.
It's striked out.
Yes, that's why I read it that way.
Thank you.
Because we did vote on that. Thank you. Any further comments, questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. That is just a second reading. It will go to the next agenda, next council meeting, when we'll do our third reading, and we will probably vote on it then. Okay. Now, we are down to item number 20, Councilors' Forum. And I think I will start with Councilor McKenzie.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two items for tonight. The first item is snow removal for safeguard of the elderly. On my particular street, and my street, South Street, is not the only street that I have seen where snow removal has not been done by residents of Southbridge. Also, we need to be concerned about the elderly because we can't have them falling and getting hurt because of negligence. I do like what Mr. Michael Murray's idea of citizens working off their fines by shoveling. I think that's a tremendous idea. Thank you, sir. However, I would also like to suggest maybe also that we could have perhaps Boy Scout troops and church youth groups might be willing to volunteer to help these elderly residents who cannot do shoveling as well, help them with their walks. And any other ideas that we can come up with, such as Mr. Murray's, to help our elderly either to get the sidewalks shoveled or to help them get their sidewalks shoveled because they're not able to do it. Also, there are sick people, ill people who can't do shoveling as well. So maybe we can even have a number where people could call. We could investigate them somewhat, make sure it's not a young guy like me trying to, get somebody to clean my walk for free. Right? So that's, I did have a resident come up to me and complain about this, and I told him I would mention it, and I did slip on my street as well. So, and my second item is that I regret to inform the Southbridge community that I will be resigning my office as town councilor effective tomorrow, January 9th. This decision has been made for personal reasons not connected with anything dealing with the town council itself or any member of the town council, but it's all personal reasons, as well as the fact that I'm actually moving out of state. So I would be not allowed to be a town councilor any longer. It has been a distinct honor and a privilege to serve as a town councilor in the town of Southbridge, and I must say that I've just been blessed by so many. So thank you very much for allowing me to serve as long as I have, and I wish this town my heartfelt best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenzie, for your service. It's been good knowing you. Let's go the other way. Councilor Cresco.
Thank you. I just have a few things this evening, just in regards to moving vehicles. I know we've talked about it in the past in regards to pedestrians and snowbanks, and now it's even harder to see pedestrians. So I know years ago, when I first got on council, I was dealing with a death of a friend that got hit crossing the street in Southbridge. And it's always a fear now that some of these snowbanks are high, people they're not seeing. So both to the pedestrians, please take extra care, be extra careful, and please be vigilant. Wear bright colors, especially when it's getting darker out. And us that are driving, please just slow down and look twice. Now with these snowbanks, they're difficult to sometimes see around some of these corners. And then the next thing, we're going to all urge all of our citizens to please conform with not just only the snow bylaw, but all the bylaws. There's different bylaws that we are asking you to, uphold and participate. So please, it's all of us. This is our community, and we care about the children, we care about our elderly, we care about those that are walking the streets. So let's just each and every one of us pick up our own and try to just do what we have to do to make Southbridge a better place. And third, I really wanted to be here tonight because I did know we received an email from Councilor McKenzie, and I sent the email to the council about me being delayed this evening. But I just wanted to thank him personally for his service to this community, not only as a councilor, but also as a member of his church and different activities that I've been involved with. But I want to say thank you, and we're sorry. We're losing a good citizen. You're leaving not only Southbridge, but you're leaving the state. So the state of Massachusetts has lost a good resident, a good citizen, someone that is caring and thinks for the citizens. So I just want to say thank you for your service, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
Councilor DePietro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, as a group, vote on a tremendous amount of money, especially when it comes time for hard assets that are mostly discussed in general government. We had a discussion in subcommittee DPW that shame on us that we haven't looked at some of the items that were voted for DPW. And Heather was kind enough to offer us a little walkthrough on the 25th of this month at 10:30 a.m. If any councilors are interested in taking a peek at all the new toys that she's bought that we haven't gotten to see yet. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Leclerc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. A few things tonight. Thank you to Mr. Murray for coming up and speaking. Thank you for your feedback and for letting us know. It's not always easy to call counselors and voice concerns. There's some things that we can help with, and there's some things that we have no control over. And I think that for the vast majority of us, we do try to help out when we can and do the right thing when we can and bring things up. That being said, your idea about paying off fines with shoveling is absolutely stellar, and I'd love, I don't know if that would come before general government or DPW, but if we could further discuss that idea and see the feasibility of it, I absolutely would love that. And I know he's also brought forward some interesting ideas on different methods of paving utilizing like recycled asphalt, which I've spoken to Councilor DePietro about, and hopefully we'll have a DPW meeting soon about that as well. So thank you for not only your concerns, but your ideas, because if we're not going to think of everything. We're not all experts in every single field, so your input's very appreciated, so thank you. One of the other things that I had on Thursday, January 25th, from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at the Arts Center, QBCH, on 111 Main Street. They're having a paint night. $35 per person. It includes all the supplies, including the aprons. It's BYOB. There's going to be free coffee, tea, and water there at the center. All of the money that gets paid into the Arts Center goes back into things like programming for the free kids' summer art classes. They're a nonprofit entity, and they work really hard in the community to bring art and fun things and for both adults and children. And my last thing is thank you, Councilor McKenzie, for all of your service and everything that you've done. I feel like I've always been able to, have rational conversations with you, whether we agreed, whether we didn't agree. You've always seemed to be a voice of reason up here on the council, cool, collected, and providing valuable input. And I just want to say thank you, and you will be missed. Thanks.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First, I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and I hope you all had a nice holiday. Also, I'd just like to echo the concerns of the sidewalks and parking as well. We need, like Councilor Carrasco said, we need to abide by our bylaws, our laws. When there's opposite side parking and there's time stipulated for that, there's a reason for it. I know on Maple Street, the day of the snowstorm, we had a couple cars at the end of the street that didn't abide by it, so the plow couldn't get down. So here it is, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we still got like over a foot of snow on Maple Street. And then another car decides, well, they're going to move their car early, so now they get plowed in. So, if you're just abiding by the rules, you're not going to get towed. We're not going to, call our police department to come hunt you down when there's a safety emergency going on in the town. Also, keep an eye on the elderly, especially during this bitter cold that we had. I mean, we had degrees without the wind chill factor below zero, and then with the wind chill factor, 20, 25 below zero. So, just be mindful of your neighbors, your elderly especially, to see if they're okay. And I think that's it. Oh, yes, and Councilor McKenzie, good luck in your future endeavors, and it's been a pleasure serving with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Morales.
Thank you. I would also like to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope this year is full of blessings to everyone, and I also would like to thank Councilor McKenzie for your service, and I hope you have a good time, and many blessings to you as well.
Yeah. Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for you. Councilor McKenzie, lots of good luck. Thank you for being a good friend as well as a colleague up here. You will be missed, and I certainly hope to see you aplenty. And I'm going to stop there. Tonight I'd like to make just a couple of quick notes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, at our last meeting that was a special town council meeting, I made a statement that I just want to clarify a little bit. When we were talking, when I made a statement about something that either Mr. Lazo or Mr. Smick had made in regards to emotion and priorities, goals, and objectives, I made a statement that I felt like I was alone, and that was very inappropriate of me because you were one to help spearhead my idea of bringing council goals and objectives to general government. You are an active participant, and you actually had ideas that were added to a list, as was Councilor Clements. So I want to apologize to you for that personally, but also thank you for your continued work on that. I know that Councilor Clements has indicated we can bring this to a special town council or a council of the whole meeting, potentially January 17th. I will look forward to that. I like the idea of progress, and I appreciate those of you that have made mention of this particular concept and are already paying attention to it. I'd also like to point out that for any of our council that will be at Mass Municipal Association, I look forward to seeing you there. I'll be there for a little while. I know that's coming up another week and a half or so. And otherwise, I wish the community a very happy New Year, and I appreciate the remarks of Mr. Murray tonight, but what's really important to me is that if you see something, say something. Please don't let it just sit latent. The safety of our children and pedestrians is paramount, and I'm really grateful to have had the phone call or two from the Murrays and from others in that particular vein. And please be neighborly. You know what? We do what we can when we can, and we shouldn't ask too many questions when someone asks us for help. So be safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. And I guess we're pretty well done then. Excellent. Oh, I did have one more comment, but that was actually sparked by what Councillor Krasko and Councillor Manis said. I got a phone call about concerns about how the parking law was being enforced, and I mentioned them to you the other day. No, the parking law, actually, he raised a concern about people getting ticketed on Everett Street when it switched over from December 31st to January 1st. And he said that the previous chief had given them, had kind of given warnings that time, although the bylaw does specifically state that it's odd side. You know, if it's an odd number day, you park on the odd side. If it's an even number day, you park on the even side. So I just wanted to point out that if you have concerns about tickets and you feel that it wasn't fair, that you weren't fairly ticketed, you can appeal to the tax collector's office, and they will consider the case. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. So just wanted to mention that. And go ahead.
If I could, Nick, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just give me a minute. One is I want to make it clear after listening to all the councilors' discussion, and I guess I'm going to be a little bit harder in my comment, but the police department, if you fail to shovel your sidewalk, you're leaving the conditions to be unsafe and dangerous for our children in going to school. I did this weekend have to send the police department out to some residents' house to let them know that they're responsible for doing their sidewalk, and everyone knows that at this point, and we had to issue some fines. And also in the other side parking, alternate side parking, we ended up towing a vehicle, and the woman was quite upset that her car got towed, but she knew the rules, she was warned in advance, she was told, she chose to ignore them, and her car got towed, and it's going to be expensive tow repair. So listen, it's not something the town wants to do, but we will do it. We will issue fines, and we will enforce it. And if we have to tow your car, we'll do that. And please don't come to us begging forgiveness after it's done or saying you're sorry, because by then it's too late. So not to sound mean, but it's a public safety matter, and we have to enforce it. And just one comment, I didn't get a chance to thank Councillor McKenzie. And I did in the email say to him, one of the things that I think the biggest honors you can get when you talk about somebody is talking about the fact that they're a good man. And Councilor McKenzie, you did a lot of good work on behalf of the citizens of this town, but more importantly, you're just a good person. And it's really nice to be able to sit down and just talk to you and feel the simple goodness within you, and how that demonstrated out throughout everybody on this board. So thank you for your service.
Definitely. Thank you, Wally, for all you've done. I mean, we don't always agree on probably many things, but you've always been an interesting person to have around. So anyway, the next council meeting will be Monday, January 29th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. And as we've already mentioned, there's a CDBG hearing at 6, which is still going to be downstairs. And then from 4 to 6, there's a public forum on the zoning audit. And we want comments on both of those things. So if you can find your way to, tweak your schedule or whatever, so you can get out of work early and come down and participate. That's, this is our community. It's everybody's community, so we need as much participation as possible. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Have a good night. Stay warm if you can.
Thank you.